Welcome to the Animal Liberation Hour, where we seek insight from animal rights and liberation activists around the world so that we can think, reflect, learn, and be inspired. It's Trey here with you for this episode, and I sat down with Karol Lopez of Florida Animal Rescue Alliance. I can't wait for you to hear her insights about animal rescue and the network that she is building in Florida with her AAM mentee. But before we get into this episode, I want to remind you that the Animal Liberation Hour is a project of Animal Activism Mentorship. AAM is a free multinational program that helps aspiring animal rights activists, as well as those who are already activists but want to take their activism to the next level. From one-on-one mentorship to free workshops and trainings to this podcast, AAM seeks to empower humans to fight for animals so that the world will have more activists and we can achieve liberation sooner. For more information, visit animalactivismmentorship.com and follow AAM on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Animal Activism Mentorship. You can keep up with our podcast, The Animal Liberation Hour, on AAM's social media as well. I hope that you're as inspired by Karol as I am. Here's the episode. Karol, welcome to the Animal Liberation Hour. We so appreciate you taking the time to come on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I want to jump straight into it. Can you just tell us a little bit about your organization, Florida Animal Rescue Alliance?
Sure. Florida Animal Rescue Alliance started off pretty much as a discussion with one of my mentees for AM. And we started going down the list of the check boxes of what they previously participated in or what they would be interested in participating. One of the things that really, popped out was the vigils. We're bearing witness of a vigil. And being that we're in South Florida, we really couldn't figure out where to go from there. We're like, okay, we would have to either drive up further north. There's really no slaughterhouses down here except for Mary's. And then also it was around the time of Thanksgiving. So we were trying to come up with an idea of what to do. And we were like, okay, what if we rescue an animal from a slaughterhouse? And again, being Thanksgiving, we're like, turkey came up. It would be something great to do. Let's save a turkey. Let's also, bring awareness about turkeys. And we couldn't find any down here. So we came down to our list. We started asking people to help us to write down a list of slaughterhouses and just to start calling to see whether they'd be willing to surrender an animal, because we wanted to come about it in a way to where we didn't want to put it out there what we were doing or where we were coming from, because it all depends on how these places they tend to be a little bit standoffish, or they're not willing to work with you. So finally, we had our list. We started calling everybody. Of course, the first one was Mary's Ranch. I called a million times. My mentee called a million times. We weren't getting through. We had a friends call in from our activist group. And finally, after a couple of weeks, we were able to get a yes from them. We weren't hearing from any other places further north. So that was a plus. And what happened then was, I guess, something that happens to a lot of us, where we were able to go in and we were able to witness everything. For him, it was very eye-opening because you're able to see it through documentaries. You're able to hear about it. You're able to see it on social media, but it's completely different once you're there to witness it. But then once we got the baby in, we had no idea what to do. So that's how it all started, to where we then got another list. I'm a list person, by the way. We got another list of sanctuaries, and we started contacting. And the first one, of course, being Aguacate, that she heard our story. Like we talked to her, we were like telling her everything that's happened. Danae was able to work with us. She's like, okay, bring them here, and then we'll work with you guys. So then we started realizing at that time that sanctuaries, there were a ton of sanctuaries in the state of Florida. But even like Aguacate itself or the others in the surrounding areas, they had no idea that they were within the vicinity, if that makes sense. And to me, I felt like, what if you guys needed help? Especially if because they after going through all of that and just being so stressed out, um, I kept thinking, putting myself in their shoes, and my mentee as well. And we were like, what if an emergency occurred to where they needed help of some sort and they couldn't get to connect with a vet, or it was after hours, or regardless of what it is, it's super expensive. So what if there was a network of sanctuaries where, sort of like the yellow book, that says my age, sorry, sort of like the yellow book, so where you back then you were able to just pull up the book and search up certain things. Like what if there was that, but for sanctuaries themselves, and then they could connect, like a community, and just reach out to one another. Like, hey guys, I have this and this happening. Have you guys ever seen this? Or do you guys have this medication on hand? This is an emergency. Is there any way that you can get it out to me or whatnot? And once we first started out with a few sanctuaries, that just believed in our mission and also agreed to how, being vegan, to what we believe in. Um, we realized, this is super important, not just for the sanctuaries that are vegan, but just for in general to have, uh, because we felt like they're taking care of animals and we want to do what's best for the animals. So we created a community, and that's how the Florida Animal Rescue Alliance was formed. It was formed for part of its mission is to rescue animals from inhumane conditions, maybe such as slaughterhouses. And then the other part is to have that community network, which is the Alliance for Sanctuaries. And then the last part, where we were learning from all of this, was that they lack so many volunteers. And not a lot of people like to volunteer, or, it's hard work. So we figured, let's give back to them. It's more than, you know, and it's not more than, it's something that we should do, um, as people in general, and as vegans, as people and vegans that love animals. And we want to give back to them because these people don't get paid. They're not getting enough grants or donations, and they wake up daily from the crack of dawn till, it's just an ongoing job. They go to sleep, or they don't go to sleep, because it depends on what's happening that day. And that's where the volunteer portion of the Florida Animal Rescue Alliance came in. And now we have up to, I want to say, 61 volunteers within our list. And they're in our list. It doesn't necessarily mean that they all volunteer at once. But for the most part, when we do have a volunteer event, which is a monthly event to give back to one of the sanctuaries within the state, we send out the list to all of them first, and then they get to decide whether, they have first come, first serve, pretty much, like priority, because they've been, so to speak, registered. They already signed waivers. We know what type of experience they have, and we can put them in certain I guess, sections depending on the sanctuary. And then if we don't have that many volunteers for that month, that's when we like put it out in open. We just reach out to the public because I mean, at the end of the day, regardless of whether we're putting it out there at the beginning or not, we want to grow the volunteer section um, because we want everyone to just come in and learn and help. And there was a documentary that I watched. I think it was I don't know if it was a small snippet of a documentary, but Farm Sanctuary of New York. They had mentioned that I think one of the photographers, I forget her name, I'd have to get back to you on that. But she started, she went vegan when she started going to Farm Sanctuary because of that experience, just hearing or witnessing the animals and how when you look into their eyes, it's just that they're a being, and you could tell that each and every one of them has their own characteristics. They're all just beautiful souls, and they deserve to live.
And I can see you and hear you getting a little bit emotional just talking about that, and you know, I get the same way because I think that's part of what's so special about animal rescue and sanctuaries is that now the animals have an opportunity to advocate for themselves. So few people in their lives get to meet a pig or a chicken or a turkey or a cow. You know, maybe if they live out in the country somewhere, they might, you know, drive by some cows that live in an open pasture somewhere or something and not think about what's going to happen to them. But when you go to a sanctuary and you hear the stories about what would have happened if they wouldn't have ended up at the sanctuary, and you know, you get to meet these animals and they have personalities and you know, unique traits and you know, different preferences and all these things, and you know, it's an opportunity for people to understand firsthand that these animals, like you said, they're beings and they matter. There's so much about what you just said that I want to dig into deeper. One thing being, you know, right from the beginning, for those that aren't familiar with the process as far as animal activism mentorship goes, Karol is a mentor, and her mentee signed up. She was talking about looking at the form. So when somebody signs up for a mentor, they fill out a form that kind of helps AAM figure out, you know, who to pair them with and, you know, what they might be the most interested in and all those things. And so, so take us back to that moment. And when you're talking to your, mentee, and, you said at first it was going to vigils, and then it turned into this thing. How did you kind of determine that that's the direction that this would go? And talk about this. You know, did you know your mentee before AAM, or did you only meet through that? Like, tell us a little bit more about that relationship and how this all kind of blossomed to create this awesome organization that you have now here.
Sure. So yes, when it comes to my mentee, I like to get to know them. I like to be, you know, that person that they feel they can trust, because at the end of the day, we're going to be quite some time through the next couple of months. And what happened then was we had gone through the list. I I didn't know him per se. I had seen him a couple times during protests. I know he attended some of the cubes, and he was fairly new to the state. Uh, so I don't know how he got paired up with me, but it worked out. um, we were going down the list, and I knew he already had it. disruptions. He had gone through protests, but he was mainly looking into something that was, um, I guess to put it out of the norm, something that we don't typically do out here. And I'm that type of person to where if you tell me something um, and it's not there, or if it's like you have this idea, you can't figure out a way how to do it, I am that person that will know. Or it's like, yes, that is it. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's get it done. I am I'm hype man per se, but we're gonna get it done some way or another. We're gonna do it. We're out. I don't know how to do it either. But we'll work it out, and that's really what happened.
I mean, I think that's just, really beautiful. You saw a need, and not only the need of your mentee to find the kind of work that would fulfill him, but also the need for the animals that was, what they needed in your unique area, in your unique situation. I mean, I think that's really awesome, and that's, yeah. It's inspirational because we have a chat with all the mentors, and we have meetings, and we talk about these things. We talk about different stories that happen, and this story with your mentee is just like something that's really always stood out to me. And I just think about all of the animals that you two have, and your larger network have rescued and given another opportunity at life, another chance. And I think it's beautiful. There's so many people. You said something earlier that kind of struck me about wanting to kind of teach people, like educating people about rescue, and that's part of what y'all are doing. And when people are more informed about how to take action, I think they're more likely to take action. I'm in some rescue groups on Facebook, and I've dabbled in animal rescue. Nothing compared to what you guys are doing, but I've been in it enough to know that it's extremely difficult work. It is networking. It is heartbreaking. I'll never forget one time I was part of a pig rescue, and the owner, quote unquote, had allowed us to go in and rescue this one pig, but there were so many other animals there that we had to leave behind. And it's really hard to do that, but you got to make a difference for this one pig, and if you hadn't done it, they wouldn't have got the shot. But it's it's hard to leave all these others behind, and you have to be built a certain way, I think, to handle that. I mean, I think animal rescue and sanctuary people are some of the strongest folks out there. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Not only your own journey, but kind of how you've watched your mentee come into that and how they've been able to handle that, and maybe other people can draw inspiration from this.
Well, my mentee graduated, so he came up with the whole idea. Another thing about it was that he had been volunteering at sanctuaries, so that's another, I guess, positive to this, to where a lot of people don't, right? What I do want to say, though, that is that we all, and us as activists, and then the reason why I say this is because it's a lot of hardship that we're enduring, regardless of whatever secular, I guess we would describe it as. And sometimes we don't know how to, what's the correct word? How to go about things without breaking down. And I think that's something that a lot of us do go through, or eventually go through. again, I'm not in the mental health field, but I think it's a topic that we always should talk about. After we go through that, right? Because it's very important to take care of ourselves, take care of our mental health. But after we go through all of that, we grow. It somehow strengthens us, and it pretty much levels us up to a way to where things are not gonna not necessarily affect us. They always do. But when we do endure these, I guess, other hardships, we're strengthened in a different way to where we're able to um, continue what we are meant to do. And it's goes in a whirlwind to where now we're just to the point where this type of person doesn't want to listen to us this way because it's not effective in the way that we're outreaching to them. So what's another way that I could outreach to them? Oh, maybe this person is a dog cat person, or just they mainly, if they see the animals themselves, it's going to affect them differently to where they're going to be able to see it in a different format. And that's just where what I'm trying to say is that the instilling the seed in different formats, it helps. And then that growth that we've learned from the past pains and I guess trials and tribulations is what makes us become greater at what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I do think about sometimes though, like when I first started getting into animal rescue a little bit, it seemed like even the non-vegans who would give me a hard time on my posts when I was posting on Facebook all the time back then about veganism, even those people, if they saw a dog that needed help or something like that, they would share it with me and expect me to handle it, and and I'm like, I don't think you understand that I don't have all the resources to be able, to do this. And I do find that to be a big problem. And part of the problem is the root cause of, just how society views animals, even dogs and cats. I mean, I know a lot of times as vegans, we, as part of our outreach will say, imagine if this pig were your dog or your cat. But a lot of people don't even care about dogs and cats. I mean, there are so many dogs and cats who are subjected to all kinds of terrible things, animal testing, and people just don't. People force their dogs to breed so they can make money off of them, and same with cats. And I mean, a lot of people don't even care about them.
Our rescues primarily focus also on farm animals, but regardless of whether we're doing it or not, we're always doing it. Or we're always helping out another rescue or sanctuary. And it got to the point where there's been so many cats and dogs, especially down here. I mean, I'm sure it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's so bad.
And they're just like, our friends are contacting us, and we're like, okay, we're going to share it. Because I mean, we're not going to share it. And yeah, we had a webinar and we talked about cats and dogs, what to do if you find a cat and dog, because people have no idea what to do. And one of the things that we just shared recently was that if you post it on social media, you have to be extra careful, because people are like, they'll say, I'll take it, or like Craigslist, I'll take it. And then they'll utilize a baby kitten or something, or the cat for bait for hunting. And it's terrible. And the fact that we have to sit here and like we got to this point to where, I mean, this year has been just, I don't want to say catastrophic, but yes, in a way it has been, because it's just been up and down. But the fact that we had to sit there and over the summer and think about, we're going to create a webinar, because regardless whether we are vegan or not, people really have no idea what to do when they find an animal, and it's upsetting.
It is, and I'm going to highly encourage people to check out that webinar. Because like I said, I think if we empower people then to take action for themselves, that's one of the best things we can do, right? Because it can't fall on the shoulders of a handful of compassionate people who are, working to do all this for no money and often going in the hole to do this kind of work. And that's kind of what I was getting at, which is I think when people just share an animal with someone that they know has some kind of network or is vegan or is in animal rights or something, a lot of times I think they have the best of intentions. Like they are just trying to help because they, like you said, they don't really know how to help. But I think what those people don't see is, just all the people behind the scenes who are going through compassion fatigue and burnout, who are just like trying their best to save every animal they can. But, there's a limit to what we can do. So I do encourage everybody to check out the webinar, but what are just some quick notes that you have for anybody listening who doesn't know what to do if they find an animal?
Well, before we get into that, I wanted to mention that when you're part of a rescue group, people take that as, oh, that's their weakness. Oh, so I'm going to send them this animal and they're immediately going to take them in.
This is who I can dump this on. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a really upsetting part. And that's why I'm saying like this year has been just a roller coaster of learning experiences, because we've started with a pig that had a tremendous mass in their testicle, and there was no one willing to like operate on him. And then all of a sudden it went from one day to the other where we were just getting tests done and it burst. So that, like, our vet is amazing. He was able to take care of him right then and there. And now he's living his best life. But the person that found them apparently couldn't keep them. And because that's what's happening now here in Florida. It's one of the worst states because after COVID, during COVID, a lot of people started taking in pigs thinking that they were mini pigs, and they would stay mini, and all of a sudden they realize that they live in an HOA or in a community that doesn't, what is it called? Their city ordinances, restrictions that don't allow farm animals because they're considered, some of them don't even have actual descriptions like Miami-Dade. And people just started dumping them in the Everglades. People just would call whoever it was, or just, we found one in Hollywood. One of my friends, and she's an activist, her and her mom found them in the alleyway in Hollywood. And it was any baby. And Florida is one of the top states that we know for sure, because we work with another rescue group, and they always complain about this state because we're like, this is the worst state when it comes to pigs. Everybody's just getting rid of them, and people completely they thought they were going to stay small. And
isn't there something about Florida? I forget what it is, but it's hard to take animals out of the state in Florida, right? Isn't there some kind of law? I know that in the past I've had to deal with that because I remember trying to get some animals from Florida or something, and they were like, at the state line they have these X-ray type of machinery where they can see inside your trailer and see if you're trying to take animals out of the state. So that's probably something that makes it even more difficult.
Well, it should be like that in every state. But yeah, for sure, whenever you're transporting an animal out of the state or into the state, they have to be certified, especially a farm animal, and they have to have whatever vaccinations they require. It just have a certain period where they're able to transport them from that particular state to the next state. It's stressful. One of the things that I would like you guys to we're working on creating the YouTube account to post a video. There's just been some glitches that have been happening. But we focused on cats and dogs mainly, because there are, I want to say that Nicole mentioned think 14K cats within this or Miami. Um, there's so many colonies. We talked about what to do if you find a baby kitten, to just, make sure that you keep an eye on it for 24 hours. Don't immediately take it away from its mom. The mom's probably nearby. We talked about those instances. We talked about if you find a cat that's sick, taking it into a veterinary clinic, or we're also going to provide a list of rescues, a list of contacts. If you see a cat that has its ear clipped, what that means, of course, it's TMVR. We talked about dogs, posting signs, what to do if you find a farmed animal. Of course, contact us. That would be the best resource. What to do if you find raccoons or any wild or native, non-native species, and talked about that as well. And we had a special guest.
So you're covering wildlife as well.
Yes, we had a special guest, which she's also an activist. They recently moved down from Colorado, and she's a vet assistant and zoologist. So she had a lot of information for everybody, and it was really nice. It's really informative, and I think it's the start to get people to know what to do just in case.
Yeah, I mean, that's so cool what you're doing. You're bringing all these different people together that have, a different expertise, like some have expertise in wildlife, and with wildlife, I mean, everything varies. I mean, from animal to animal, like species to species, there's so much to know and so much to learn. I mean, it's almost impossible to learn it all. So to have this group of people that can rely on each other, a wonderful network, that's just great. And the idea for that and all the work that y'all have put into that is very inspiring. And I'm so glad it exists, because it's obviously very needed. Let's learn a little bit more about you. Can you tell us about your journey to veganism and animal rescue, and kind of how it all led up into this point where you are now?
Sure. So I want to say I've been vegan for 8 years now. This is my 8th anniversary, or it was in July. How I got started, from work. She's vegan, and she started harassing everyone with documentaries at the time. And she, of course, I mean, I've never been just opposed to trying different foods. I've always eaten vegetables, never not had a thing for red. We're like, well, broccoli. It was the complete opposite. So whenever she would invite us in the office to go and, oh, let's was this place vegan and juice down the street from the office where we worked at, and it's like, yes. And then we really started getting into going there every day for lunch. First, she started incorporating um, her thoughts, and
You said this was a friend of yours?
yeah, she's a friend. Well, back then she was more sort of like my supervisor or just coworker, and then she became a supervisor, and we're friends. Yeah, we're friends. Yeah, it was. I mean, she harassed everybody.
I don't know any vegans like that. I don't know what you
No, it was fun. She brought in the vegan cakes, vegan donuts. I mean, it was a good rivalry, honestly. And then I got pregnant. And then I've just always been that person that's curious. I always like to learn. Even when I was younger, I'm that person that my mom would get mad because, why do you think this way? Or why can't you just like, it is because it is. Like, I mean, in the Latino community, it's like, it's because I say so. That's it. You cannot talk or say anything afterwards. It's like, that's it. Don't speak. And then, of course, me being me, I always kept going, but mom. So I've always been that person that wants to learn more or questions things because it just doesn't make sense and I need to know more.
It's like those scenes you see in movies where the kid's like, "But why?" And then the parents say
Yeah,
something, "But why? But why?"
that's me. And now I've been blessed with one that's made exactly like myself. But
You're gonna get it all back now.
yeah, for sure. Totally. It's been happening. But so I was pregnant and it was my son and it was a high-risk pregnancy and it was just everything was happening to me at the time to the point where she had already brought me. I watched What the Health, and What the Health was, I guess, very eye-opening. I mean, everybody in the house, she's really my husband because my other kids are little, and I guess What the Health wasn't really interesting to them at the time. And husband was really intrigued by it. And then I started looking more into it. And like I said, since I was having a high risk pregnancy, what happened, I went into a restaurant, we went to eat, and I told my husband I wasn't feeling well. I took 3 steps because he gave me the keys, go to the car, man. I'm gonna be right there. I'm just gonna pay. And I passed out in the middle of the restaurant.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah. So to begin with, I guess it started out as a health transition, but then I went down literally the rabbit hole, and I did a ton of research. With that one documentary, I started watching more documentaries. Um, I mean, I went into the science websites. I listened to what people told me, but as people were telling me things and as I saw them in documentaries, I'm the type of has to go and verify that that information is correct. It's that way. And I would go and research it and I would get myself more embedded. And then I started watching the VDRs. I got myself the visual, I don't know, VDRs or the ones that you put on your face and you actually see like if you're there physically.
Yeah, like the Oculus type things or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember um sitting there next to my husband and he's on his computer and I'm just crying. I start bawling and he's like, "What are you doing? I'm watching this baby." And it's like I think it was a baby calf. And the cows are like everybody. It was just so heartbreaking. And he's like, "Why are you doing this to yourself?" It's like you've already read everything. Okay, you've already transitioned you started the whole process. I I went and when I said I went down the rabbit hole, I went down the rabbit hole to the point where um I guess you could say that I got myself really depressed. And that's where changed everything. Like I guess, what's the word? Out of cold or just from one day to the next, everything was said, "I'm done." I was angry. Um,
The light bulb turned on for you just right then.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't aware of. I've always been connected to animals. Um, it was more that I was very dismissive, and I think that happens to a lot of us. I think it happens to a lot of us regardless. And that's so another reason why we created the webinar because I feel like we forget to take action within our own hands. I mean, the accountability aspect is really big on me. And I think that was one other, like, going back to the whole with my mentee, and not just this mentee, which we started with, it was all my mentees that I've had. I've always wanted them to attend a sanctuary, because it's super important to just be there and to witness what we're out there protesting, like who these beings are, like to experience life with these beings. Like, these are not just beings that you see on recordings or, on Instagram, social media, on documentaries. These are like actual babies that are taken away from their mothers. And I remember smelling the cow in the slaughterhouse. They don't technically sell cows, but there was a cow hanging. So there's little things that really bother me. And someone calls me and they're like, I have this animal. Like, my friends have told me, they're like, why do you get angry at people when, like, even like afraid to tell me, or they joke about it. Carol's gonna chew you up if you tell her that you don't want to keep your dog. Even think about keeping your dog, or not keeping your dog for its entirety, its whole life, and she's gonna chew you up. And they'll joke about it, but they know it's true. Like, I get really upset when someone calls me and they're like, I can't keep them anymore. And I'm like, how long have you had them? Like, we had one recently, 13 years. 13 years. And that's where, I mean, I don't know if I answered everything you asked me, but that's where I get it. It's like a ball of anger wells up, and I think of everything that I've experienced and that witnessed. It's from the very beginning, how it started, um, how it's been going, what keeps me going.
It sounds like you're just very connected, because I think even as animal rights activists, we in our minds sort of play those. We're sort of involved in those same mental gymnastics that carnists are involved in, where we try to basically just try to keep all of those painful thoughts from coming to our mind. Carnists do it by not taking any personal responsibility for what's happening to animals in slaughterhouses and laboratories and circuses and zoos and aquariums. But sometimes we have to do that, I think, just to survive or something. I don't want to speak for anybody else in animal rescue, but to fully allow yourself to feel every bit of pain is just too much for one person to bear. But I do think you're right that it's important to feel connected. That's part of why it's important to go to a sanctuary. That's part of why it's important to visit a slaughterhouse at least once in your life. Even if you're not somebody who goes to vigils all the time, just going once, or once every X amount of years or something, just to remind yourself, who you're fighting for, because the situation is very real, and even to us activists, it's not as real as it is for the animals. Even those of us that are in the trenches, or people like you who are experiencing all this right in front of your face. It's disconnection can be a very bad thing. And to hear that story about somebody who's disconnected from their own dog, somebody who's supposed to be their family member, that's been in their lives for 13 years, and then to transfer that. I don't want to say burden, because animals, I don't think of animals as a burden. I think of them as a blessing. But we do have a responsibility to them to help them even when it's not convenient for us, if they're our family member. Just like any family member, just like someone who becomes elderly, you don't just dump them somewhere where they're not getting what they need. And to that animal, you can do your best to help this animal, but they're just going to be wondering where their family is. They don't understand that their families dumped them. That's just so awful.
Right. And that's what I guess really angers me. And to me, it's the authenticity. Going back to the animal again, pigs or really upsets me about all of this. Pigs are, I mean, we all know it. We've done our research. They're one of the top smartest animals. They're as smart as a toddler. So every time that, like going back again to saying that the state of Florida has this major issue with just people getting rid of pigs, like hot-bellied pigs, especially because they thought at one point there were going to stay many. Pigs go through depression just like we do. So being said that they're smarter, the top smartest animals, they're smarter than our cats and dogs. They're smart as a toddler, like I said. And when you see, like when you're there witnessing that they're going through depression and you have no idea what to do because you don't speak pig, they don't trust you. You're looking into their eyes and they're just completely lost. And it depends. I mean, it doesn't matter on the age, but sometimes it depends on how old they are because they die without that person that they thought was their family member. And I mean, a lot of the times they die. They die from depression. They die from heartbreak, and it's just I don't even know how to explain it. It's upsetting. It angers me. It just puts me in whole other I guess mental. I don't even know what the word is. It it doesn't even make me want to go outside and interact with people because of how it is. Um, and I mean, I still protest. I still do disruption every once in a while, but I focus on this because um, I don't know. I see them, and I know like everyone's doing their own thing. Everybody has their own goals. I've never stopped emailing politicians. I've done that from even before I've been vegan because I believe one way or another. Um, but I feel like their meetings are so important that we completely disconnect from the fact that they need us and don't have volunteers coming in. It's heartbreaking because some of the sanctuaries are completely um just empty. It's, all they see is it's not animals get when they see a lot of people coming in. Of course, that's why you shouldn't have um, zoos. Um, they don't know what's happening. They don't know these people. They don't trust. But they do like interaction every now and then, especially if you're coming in off to see that you care. And they look forward to seeing. Like I have my one pig. His name is Laz. Every time I call him and every time I visit him, he runs towards me. He's probably like 600 pounds now, but he knows me. And um, everybody over at that sanctuary is afraid of him. He's humongous now. Like the volunteers, they don't. they've never dealt with a pig that size. But he's a baby to me, and he remembers me, and he knows, like, one of my friends that volunteers there, uh, the one that's mainly there every week. She's like, he misses you. She says me, and then it's like he's telling me to come over, and then I go over, and it's that he wanted to see you, and his eyes light up when he sees you. It's like, I know, because you could tell it's I explain it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, animals are in many ways like humans. They have different personalities, like you said. Some people like all the attention or some animals like all the attention and the interaction and everything. Some animals would rather kind of keep to themselves, or maybe they've got one other animal they want to hang out with, and that's it. Or I mean, and sometimes animals express their feelings in different ways. I mean, they're very, we're talking about pigs right now. I mean, pigs are very complex creatures.
There's a reason why community takes them as test subjects. They're one of the closest beings that have their composition that is similar to ours, and that's heartbreaking. And I just urge everybody to please visit sanctuaries. Try to go as much as you can. Help out. If they're not vegan, instill that seed within the owner. But another thing that I realized as we've grown the network is that there are sanctuaries that aren't vegan, right? And I've gotten into, I guess, arguments where I guess I've grown to the point where they're not really arguments anymore. They're discussions now, where you are instilling that seed, because at the end of the day, they're still getting up every morning, and that animal has been safe for at least 20 years. And I do a lot of research to the point where I make sure that they are being taken care of. And I think that's another part where we've got to where we want to talk to these people, because we want them to. I mean, you're already there 24/7. You see how they interact with you, with each other. You're the first person that witnesses it. Why not just take the next step? And I think that's another way to sow a seed and to do what we do best and communicate effectively and help educate others, especially those that are helping the animals.
I'm guessing that you, I mean, just because there's so few vegans in the world, I'm guessing you interact with a lot of non-vegan rescues. Yeah.
I mean, just people in general, rescues, people that are rescuers, people, I mean, just people that are dropping off their animals. Like I said, people take advantage. Once you tell them that you're vegan and you're rescuing animals, it's like, oh, this is a person, like you said, she's not going to be able to say no. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have some boundaries, right? Like at some point, if you run yourself into the ground, you're not going to be able to help anybody. It's hard. It's hard to say no when there's an animal that needs help. But I think what you're doing, empowering other people to be able to do something and say, yes, I mean, that is the groundwork that really needs to be laid so that we can have more people helping and it doesn't fall on, just a select few. I know we don't have too much time left together. I wanted to ask real quick what you would say to someone who's thinking about getting into animal rescue, or someone who's just starting out. Any words of wisdom you have for anybody listening that is new or about to embark on the journey of animal rescue?
First, I'd say have a lot of patience. Um, you're going to be discouraged easily. You're going to get to points where you're just going to want to throw in the towel and quit that day or the next day, and then you realize you can't. They need you. Um, yeah, have a lot of patience. You're definitely going to be an advocate for animals, regardless if you want to or not. Um, there's really not a favorite animal that you'll have, but for sure you're going to have differences in each and every one. They all have ways regardless of species. Don't let people tell people anywhere, regardless of what you do, to take advantage. People like to take advantage of your kindness. Um, People are just people. No other way to put it. Do it for the animal because they need you. They don't have a voice. And even if they did have a voice, like dogs, they're very loyal. Um, Sometimes animals have gone through the toughest experiences and they'll still be loyal to that particular person that they shouldn't be loyal to. So just do it for them. They deserve a chance. They deserve someone speaking up for them. I mean, why we that's why we protest. That's why we do everything that we do as activists. Yeah, just have a lot of patience and love for this mistakes.
Yeah, and I've got one last question for you. Sorry, my dogs are barking. I think the delivery person is in the neighborhood. they're 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 barking away. But anyway, we've talked about a lot of how hard it is and how difficult it is. But could you leave us with one instance or story that's heartfelt, that something that just like makes it all worthwhile? If you could leave us with a thought like that, whether it be just your thoughts on that, or maybe a particular story of an animal that was rescued, or something like that. If you want to leave us with something.
Yeah, it was our first rescue. Our first rescue was our biggest heartbreak. It was learning. It was an experience that it's those type of experiences that you go through that you're like, maybe I'm not meant to do this. Maybe this isn't right. I don't have any idea of what I'm doing. This is just stupid. Why did I decide to do it? It's meant to break you down and not want to keep going. But our first rescue was Delilah. I mentioned earlier we rescued her from Mary's Ranch here in Miami. And one of the things that we learned from rescuing from slaughter is that a lot of these babies don't get vaccinated. They do not get the proper care first. I mean, they're going from one truck to the other, or they're getting killed instantly. They don't even get to live to 3 months or past 3 months. So when we rescued her, one of our things is always to alleviate the expenses of the sanctuary that will be taking them in, is to raise funds. I mean, back then we all did it just out of pocket, and we wanted to take care of all her health needs. We wanted to get her spayed. Um, we know now, as we've been in this for 2 years, that a lot of sanctuaries are at capacity and they are not willing to take in animals because a lot of people are just dropping off animals that are not spayed or neutered, and that requires funds, and sanctuaries don't have the funds to cover for these expenses, or they don't have transportation, whatever it is that it's needed. But And then we took care of all of that. The doctor that spayed her told us that she required 7 days. Again, we went into this blindly. We had no idea what we were doing. We're like, we did our research, of course, but believing in what the doctor said, and then, doing our research to bring her to the sanctuary. The sanctuary was already her in. And then again, how I mentioned earlier, pigs are very similar to humans. If think about how when a woman gets her tubes tied, they require a particular breath. And for the doctor telling us, she needs 7 days to recuperate, to make sure her precision as well. We did all of that. We then, once the days passed, we transported her. We didn't think of connecting what happens, once a woman gets her tubes tied, versus a pig, because it didn't click until after it happened. So a couple days as she's in the sanctuary, she goes to bed. Maybe 1 or 2 days, she goes to bed next to the pig, one of the pigs there that was extremely happy because she had lost her best friend. So it was like a new friend coming in, and she woke up dead. The sanctuary owner panicked and called us, like, what's going on? We all started crying. We were in shock. We cried for hours. We had no idea what could have happened. And what happens is that they don't get enough rest, or you're not watching them consistently during that time, their intestines can turn, especially if they're moving around a lot. So they need to be in a secure area, and they need to be watched for 14 days, not 7 days. Um, and that was a time that was super hard because it was our first rescue, and we were so attached to her. And we felt like we had done something, and this was, the greatest thing, because like I said, the experience was horrendous. And just having her, she was happy. That was the other thing. You could see it in her eyes. She was happy. She was at this point where, I know I'm loved, I am taken care of, and just free. And all of a sudden, just taken away like that, like nothing. To where we thought we blamed everything on ourselves. And I think that's what humans typically do. We find a way to blame ourselves and just figure out what we did wrong. And then at that point in time, we could have just thrown everything and just said, that's it. We're not going to do this anymore. We messed up. We don't know what we're doing. So we had, like I said, already started creating the network. And we had already, in the midst of all of that, gotten 2 other pigs. One was completely malnourished. And I posted it during the webinar at the beginning, and they were in, like where they put foxes or like rabbits, those cages, or in the bottom, where they were standing on, it was like cage material. So it wasn't really a pen per se. Yeah. And 2 were attached to each other. And the littlest one, her brother, was malnourished. Like, body was completely deformed. And I don't want to say that we replaced the, because we didn't. It was just everything was happening so sudden, and we weren't going to say no. Like, we're not going to rescue them. And the guy to like take this. Pretty much, they always give us the animals that, like, slaughterhouses are always willing to throw out whatever animal is in the least, I guess, healthiest condition, because guys are not going to make it. They're pretty much disposing of them, and it's garbage. And that's another story and extremely heartbreaking to deal with. We took them in, and as we were going and dealing with all this pain and, I guess, strength, because now we have these other two to help care for, we find out that the one that has his body's all transformed, that he has anemia. He's most likely not going to make it. He needs a lot of fluids and whatnot. And regardless, we get all the medical checkups. We didn't do any spay or neuters, but he ended up passing away. The other thing was that during that time, it was the years where we were having, I guess, really cold temperatures here in Florida, which is not normal. So it was like everything was happening. Everything was going against us, which was another, I guess, trial that we had to endure. And we had to see whether we kept going. And he ended up passing. Regardless, everything that we tried to do. So that was our second one. And his sister, like, till this day, she's at one of the best sanctuaries that we have. She's thriving. She's with another of the babies that we rescued from a slaughterhouse. She's one of the happiest pigs ever. But I know she was like, we know that she was sad, but it helped us, I guess, in a way, realize that we do what we can, and we push. I mean, we were coming out of pocket at the time, all of us, and it's not that we didn't try. We tried probably more than the regular person would try, and it just helped us to keep going. And then after that, we rescued Laz and Joe, and those were the babies that were all rescued that year from slaughter. And Joe is living his best life with his big sister over at a private sanctuary. And Laz, that's my baby. He's humongous. He's amazing. And Holly, she's beautiful. And I get to see them every now and then. And I get pictures of them all the time. So I guess that's it. That was one of the toughest times, and that's what kept us going, and will, I guess, forever keep us going, because we still have experiences like that.
Yeah, it's amazing that you were able to push through all of that and keep going. And for those who didn't make it, I think one of the best things we can do in their honor is to keep going. And that's what you did, and so many lives have been affected. My friend Rich Adams from Canada, he has a quote. I might not get it exactly right, but he says, when you save one animal, you save the whole world for that animal. And any one life we can help is that being's whole world. So Karol, thank you so much for all you do. I'm so inspired by your work. I know that the people who listen to this will be extremely inspired as well. I encourage everyone to check out your webinar. I'll link that in the show notes.
The other thing I guess I was going to mention that we're going to be at the Vegan Block Party on the 5th of October. What else? We're going to post a webinar. We're relating to sanctuaries, rescues. I'm sure we're going to continue to post webinars or keep asking people to join. Just we like educating people, honestly.
I think that's one of the best things anybody can do. And that's what we do at AAM, right? We're educating people and laying a groundwork so that more people can be empowered and more people can do this, because we can't all do it by ourselves, right? And that's what you're bringing to animal rescue, like in a whole, I mean, it's incredible. I really, truly think as a movement, we have to focus more on education and empowerment, because without that, we're never going to grow and we're never going to be a real movement. I mean, if we don't grow, we're not a real movement. We're just, on the fringes. And we need to continue to educate people. That's crazy. You're able to balance all that and get so much done. I mean, being a mom alone is a full-time job on top of like working for an income and doing things for the animals. But I can only imagine the example you're setting for your kids and showing your kids what's possible to make the world a better place. And that's just getting a little teary-eyed. That's beautiful. It's awesome.
I forgot to mention my other mentee. She actually runs our social media.
Wow, that's great. I didn't know that.
So, she graduated too, but everybody, we all have access to the account, but she's pretty much, if you go to our bio, she's our social media manager. And she's in Tennessee.
That's so wonderful. You're building a little empire here.
We all work together.
The friendships you develop where, you're really in the trenches together, fighting side by side for something that is bigger than yourself and something you really believe in. Those are some of the best friendships you can form. There's just not quite anything else like it, and wow, the fact that you're getting all this work done for the animals, but you're also building a community. Not only are you bringing these people into the movement in general, and then specifically into rescue, but you're creating a community, because all this stuff we do as activists, I just don't know if we'd survive without community. And it's such a overlooked aspect of what we can do to help animals is create communities and strengthen communities. And you're doing just that, Karol. It's fantastic what you're doing. It really is. So when I was interviewing Karol, we had kind of got to a stopping point, but I added back in some of the candid conversation that we had there at the end, and I hope you really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate and review the podcast. It helps others find it more easily, and the more people that find it, the more people can be inspired by the guests interviewed on our show like Karol, and we can turn that into actionable change for the animals. If you enjoy the Animal Liberation Hour and would like to support our work at Animal Activism Mentorship, please consider joining our Patreon for as little as $2 a month if you're able to do so. This goes such a long way in helping us grow the animal rights movement through mentorship. I also want to remind everybody about the upcoming Austin Convergence. It is 11 days of action for animals, October 11th through the 21st. It's an opportunity for community. It's an opportunity to stand side by side with other activists fighting for animal rights. and I really hope that you'll consider coming. You do have to register to attend. You can find the information on our Linktree, which is linked in the show notes, and it always sits in the bio of our Instagram page. People that come to these in-person events always have such huge takeaways, and they always can't wait for the next one. It's such an incredible experience to have this community with so many other people who are fighting for animal rights, and we always see amazing things come out of these convergences. So I hope that you will register to attend. If you can't attend, I sincerely hope that you will donate. Your money will go such a long way for the animals when you donate to a convergence like this one. If you can't make it for all 11 days, even one day, even a weekend, even a few days, half of the days, whatever you can do, we'd love to see you in Austin. If you enjoy the Animal Liberation Hour and would like to support our work at Animal Activism Mentorship, please consider joining our Patreon for as little as $2 a month if you're able to do so. This goes such a long way in helping us grow the animal rights movement through mentorship. You can also find other ways to donate like Cash App and PayPal through our Linktree. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Animal Activism Mentorship, where you can keep up with the podcast and everything AAM. One more reminder that you can sign up for a free mentor to help you with your activism at animalactivismmentorship.com. If you needed a sign that you should be an activist for animals, this is it. Remember that it will take all of us to achieve animal liberation, so stay focused, stay positive, be effective, and keep doing your part. Until next time.